Hi, my name is Sharmin Anwar. I'm an attorney with Cobb Legal Aid Society, and I am also the lawyer in the law library here in the Cobb Superior Court. Today, I will be giving a presentation on the basics of food stamps. So just a little background, Cobb Legal Aid is a nonprofit law firm providing free advice and or assistance to low-income people for many basic civil legal matters. And we do prioritize issues of shelter and safety. So the types of cases we handle are family law, housing, education, special needs, and public benefits. We serve low-income individuals, and income eligibility is linked to the federal poverty rate, and applicants must live in Cobb County or have a Cobb County case. So when should you call Cobb Legal Aid? You should call us if you're being evicted, if your landlord refuses to make repairs, if you're experiencing domestic violence, if your disabled child's education needs are not being met, or if your public benefits are being terminated. Just kind of a little bit of how you can get in touch with us. Well, we do intake and screening by phone from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Monday through Thursday. That's the number you can give a call. For non-urgent issues, you can submit an application online. And as I'd mentioned, I am an attorney in the law library, where I provide free 30-minute consultations to qualifying individuals. I can take a look at your case, give you some advice, and I'm here in the law library Monday through Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Just a general disclaimer, this is a general presentation about Georgia law, and it may or may not directly apply to the specifics of your case. So if you are needing a case-specific advice, you should definitely consult with an attorney. So as I've mentioned, today we're going to be talking about food stamps, which are also known as SNAP benefits. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and it's essentially financial assistance for food, and it is administered by the Division of Family and Children Services, which is also commonly known as DFACS. So who is eligible for food stamps? There's several different requirements, and we're going to jump around a little bit because I want to tease out some of these requirements a bit more in detail. But the first one is they look at your household, right? Food stamps are not just for one person in the house. They look at the entire household, which means who buys and prepares groceries together, who's basically cooking the meal together, who's benefiting from the food that's in the house. So when you're looking at food stamps and applying for food stamps, you're going to be reporting everyone in the household that shares groceries, cooks together, eats together, not just yourself. There's also a citizenship requirement. So SNAP benefits are limited to U.S. citizens and certain lawfully present non-citizens. And non-citizens must be qualified aliens in order to be eligible for SNAP. So what is a qualified alien? Some examples include lawfully admitted permanent residents, asylees, parolees, conditional entrants, Cuban or Haitian entrants, battered non-citizens, refugees, trafficking victims, Iraqi and Afghani special immigrants. And you would be required to provide that citizenship or status information when you apply. There's also income and resource requirements. So this is where I'm going to jump a couple of slides. So, because this is the most important one probably, with income requirements, most households must meet both gross and net income limits. So let's take a moment to talk about the difference between gross and net income. Gross income is your total income before taxes or any other deductions, and net income is the amount left over after taxes and deductions are taken out. Deductions include housing costs, court-ordered child support payments, child-dependent care payments. Households who receive disability payments or who are over 60 can deduct out-of-pocket medical expenses. So keep in mind, those are two requirements. That's both gross income and net income. And you're probably wondering, well, what is the income cutoff, right? And it basically, you have to, your income has to be at or below 130% of the federal poverty rate. And that basically means that just because one household has an income of X, and another household has the same exact income, doesn't mean that they will both qualify necessarily, because there are so many factors that go into play. For example, $45,000 income for one family may not be at 130% of the federal poverty level, but it may be for another family, and that's because there's so many other factors that come into play. When we're also talking about income, we're talking about both earned and unearned income. So earned income would be income you receive through employment. Unearned income includes things like cash assistance. It also includes things like child support, unemployment insurance benefits. So DFACS is going to look at both earned and unearned income. There are some exceptions where, there could be households who only have to meet the net income requirement, and those households include household with an elderly person or a household with a person receiving disability payment. So in that situation, they may not need to also meet the gross income limits. If everyone in the household receives supplemental security income or temporary assistance for needy families, which are also public benefits, you are automatically income eligible. Most households can only have up to $2,500 in resources. Households that include a person that's 60 or older or a person with disability can have up to $3,500 in resources. And what are resources? What is DFACS looking at when they're counting resources? And it's things you own, such as including cash or money in the bank account, essentially things that could be used to purchase food. Resources don't include your car or your home. We talked about, household, we talked about citizenship requirement, income and resource requirement. So there is also a work requirement. So most people must meet work requirements to get SNAP benefits. And the work requirements include taking a suitable job if offered, and not voluntarily quitting a job or reducing your work hours to less than 30 hours a week without a good reason. So you also have to meet this work requirement. Exception though is if you are under 16, or if you are 59 years of age, pregnant, or excused due to a physical or mental disability. In that situation, you would not also need to meet the work requirement. Now, there are scenarios where you may not have to follow these other requirements, and this is a very fact-intensive inquiry. It's very case by case. It's hard to say whether or not you're exempt. You really just need to apply and see whether or not your situation qualifies you under any of these exceptions. But some examples include veterans, whether disabled or not, if you're caring for a disabled adult or child under age 6, participants in drug treatment programs or receiving unemployment benefits. Some of these situations could exclude you from some of these requirements. So let's talk about rights. What are my rights with SNAP? So you have several rights with SNAP. This includes the right to get an application the day you ask for it. So there shouldn't be this delay if, for example, you've gone in person and asked for a copy of the application. You have the right to have your application accepted when you file it. This is an important distinction. When I say accepted, it's not the same thing as approved. Sometimes people get confused that, I have the right to have my application accepted. That does not mean approved. It just means accepted for review of possible approval. You have the right to have any adult apply for your household, apply for you if you can't go to the food stamps office, or DFACS office. So if you can't do it online, but you need to do it in person, you're not able to do it in person, you can authorize someone to go and apply on your behalf. If you are 60 or older or have a disability, you have the right to home visit or telephone interview. Post-COVID, I believe nearly all interviews are pretty much over the phone anyways. I don't really think that there's a lot of in-person interviews going on. And we'll talk a little bit more about interviews, but basically when you apply for SNAP benefits, you will be interviewed and asked a little bit more about your application. And like I said, pretty much all of these are done by telephone anyways. So it's very important to check your phone. I think sometimes agencies will call with a private number or an unidentified number or a blocked number. So I always tell everybody, if you're applying for food stamps, Make sure that your phone does not block private callers or unidentified callers, because you may be missing out on an interview. And if you miss out on an interview, then that could really harm your application and delay things further. If you are eligible for expedited services, you have the right to get your EBT card and PIN within 5 days of when you file for your application. So we'll talk a little bit more about expedited services, basically getting your benefits more quickly than the regular process. You also have the right to not be discriminated against on the basis of race, color, sex, age, religion, national origin, political affiliation, or disability. If you are discriminated against, you have the right to file a complaint. You also have a right to a hearing if you disagree with a SNAP decision. You have the right to look at your SNAP file. So this is important. People sometimes forget that if they've been denied benefits, maybe it's something in their application, you should ask for a copy of your file so that you can see the available information they had when they made the decision to deny you. You also have the right to be notified if your benefits are reduced or stopped. And that's because if there's some information that was used to reduce or stop your benefits, you would want to make sure that you know what that basis is. And if it's an incorrect basis, you have the opportunity to correct whatever information they have. So you have rights with SNAP, but you also have responsibilities. So you can begin your application by completing your name, contact information, date, and your signature, but make sure you complete the entire thing. There's a lot of information that's expected of you, so make sure you complete the entire application. You are responsible to tell the truth in your application. You will need to provide proof of your eligibility. So remember, we talked about eligibility, which is who's in your household, work requirements, citizenship, in like earned income, unearned income, your resources. This is so important. So you have to provide proof of your eligibility. And as I said, it's for the whole household that you're applying for. So if you're giving information about your resources, your income, but if you're including your children, your spouse in the household, if they have resources, if they have income, that needs to be reported. So you have to be truthful in all that you're reporting. You are responsible for reporting any changes in your household circumstances. In Georgia, you only have to report a change when your total gross monthly income exceeds 130% of the federal poverty level for your household size, because remember, the cutoff for income limits is 130% of the federal poverty level. So if you have a change in your household, if someone has now had assets or income or something like that, you need to be able to notify DFACS quickly. You're also responsible for not selling, trading, or giving away your food stamps benefits. This is very, very important. You need to understand that food stamps are for the purpose of buying food. It's not to be used in any other kind of way, because the consequences are pretty grave if you do end up doing some of these things, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You can only buy approved items with food stamps, so you cannot buy alcohol or cigarettes with SNAP benefits. If you break any of the food stamps rules on purpose, and that's important, right? Because it could be that something happened where you do end up breaking a rule and it was an honest mistake, then you know that's different. But if you break any of these food stamp rules on purpose, at the very least you will not get benefits for 1 year. However, depending on the rule that you broke and depending on the severity of it, you could also be fined, you could be prosecuted or banned from the program for a longer period of time. So the consequences of not following these rules and abiding by your responsibilities, it could be pretty grave. So how does one apply? Most people just do it on Georgia Gateway online, or you can go in person at your local DFACS office. It is important to just try to go to one place. Sometimes people go to multiple DFACS offices, and that can definitely cause delay or confusion. So go to your local DFACS office and try to keep it the person who is going to be the representative of the household as well. So as I'd mentioned, once you apply, you will also have an interview, and at the interview you will be asked to provide proof of your identity, income, resources, and this is just examples of the stuff you have to provide. So like I said, identity, citizenship, immigration status, social security numbers for everyone in your household. So when you are having this interview, be prepared. Make sure you have all this ready, because you wouldn't want a situation where you only prepared or gathered documents about yourself if you're seeking benefits for other people in your household. You need to provide proof of income for each household member, proof of rent or mortgage payment, medical bills for 60 or older people with a disability, because remember, there's certain exemptions and there's certain higher like resource and asset limits for certain individuals. Child care receipts, because remember, that can affect your net income, and proof of utility costs. So how much will I get, and how do I get my SNAP benefits? So the amount of your monthly benefits will depend on how many people are in your household and the combining net and gross income of your household. So, it's not one standard number that everyone's gonna get. It's like I said, this is a very case-by-case, fact-intensive analysis. The person you decide is your head of household will get an electronic benefit transfer, so an EBT card. This card will be mailed to you along with the personal identification number, the PIN. Each month, your SNAP benefits will be loaded onto the card, and you can use your card to buy food in authorized stores. So it's very important to keep track of that EBT card and that PIN number. If you've lost it, you must notify DFACS as soon as possible, so that you don't risk someone else getting, your information and using it for themselves. How long does it take to process the application? So the standard of promptness is about up to 30 days. Again, there's the expedited process for urgent need. And urgent need, how do you know whether or not you can ask for an expedited process? And that's usually where people are very, very low income, where they really don't have much income coming in at all. I think it has to be less than $150 in monthly gross countable income and liquid resources of $100 or less. So if you're in that kind of stat, then you can request an expedited process for urgent need. And I believe DFACS already will review all applications, whether or not for urgent need. So if, when you report your earnings on the application, if it falls within that urgent need, then I think it's going to be automatically renewed. Otherwise, you would have to ask. So let's say you get a decision and denying you benefits, or you disagree with any decision on your SNAP benefits. You can request a hearing. To request a hearing, you can call or contact your local DFACS office by phone or in writing. You must contact your local DFACS office within 90 days if you were denied based on eligibility. There may be other SNAP decisions which you disagree with, and in some cases you have less time to appeal. So the letter denying you or reducing benefits, whatever it is, whatever decision comes from DFACS, it is always important to review it in its entirety, because it will tell you any deadlines if you want to appeal the decision, if you want to file a complaint or whatever it is. That letter will explain to you how to go about that process. So yes, it's 90 days for eligibility, denial based on eligibility, but keep in mind it could be a different timeline for a different issue. Also importantly, SNAP renewal. It's not like once you apply and approved, you have SNAP for the rest of your life. You have to renew. All SNAP recipients are required to complete a periodic review to continue their eligibility for benefits. So for most Georgia households without elderly or disabled people, that period is 6 months. But for households where there are elderly or disabled people, that period is 12 months. And you'll get a letter in the mail when it's time to reapply. So just make a note, put it on your calendar, remind the people in your household, just something so that you don't miss that deadline, because otherwise you would have to go through the process again. So as I'd mentioned a little bit before, there are also there's a responsibility to report changes in the household. So most households only have to report the following 2 changes twice a year at the halfway point and when you recertify. So you have to report when someone moves in or out of the household, because remember, eligibility, it depends on the people in your household and what their income is and things like that. And then also how much you get in food stamps depends on the number of people in your household. So if someone moves out, you need to report that because it can change the composition of how much you should get, or it may even affect how much, whether or not you qualify. You also need to report financial changes like income, rent, savings, or child support. So remember, it's not just earned income, it's just any kind of changes in your finances. You want to think kind of like big picture here, what's changing. If, for example, you got a child support modification and now you're getting more in child support, or maybe you're getting less in child support, this is still a change in your finances and you should report that. And then most households needs to report the following 3 changes no more than 10 days after they've happened. So these things have to be reported no more than 10 days. So within 10 days, you need to report if when your household income goes over the monthly income limit. This could be because someone starts making more money or someone with income moves in. When an adult without a disability or a child who was working or training 20 hours per week starts working or training less. And then the receipt of substantial lottery or gambling winnings. If you are moving, you should report your new address ASAP to make sure you don't miss any important letters. So that's the situation where you have to report much more quickly than what we just discussed. So that completes the overview of food stamps. Of course, if you have specific questions, you would want to consult with an attorney about your case. As I had mentioned, I'm with Cobb Legal Aid. Here is our contact information. You can give us a call, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Monday through Thursday for an intake and screening, or submit one online. And as I'd mentioned, I am the lawyer in the law library, where I provide free 30-minute consultations to qualifying individuals, Monday through Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I'm located here in the Cobb Superior Court on the 4th floor in the law library. Thank you so much.